Welcome to Books, Kids, and Creations with Tracy Bloom, a part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'm your host, Tracy Bloom, and I feature people who inspire and uplift future generations with their work. It is December, and I am excited to feature a wonderful author out of Illinois, Katie Otey, and she has this beautiful, beautiful book called Every Other Christmas. Thank you, Katie, for being here.
Thank you. Hi.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
for having me.
I read your book and I read it a couple times because it's beautifully worded and the illustrations are fantastic. So I really want to talk about, well, before we get into the book, how you started off as a writer and what your journey has been like so far.
Okay. Love talking about that. How I started off as a writer, I'm going to be honest, I've always, like, for as long as I can remember, loved books. I learned how to read very young, like at 3, and I have just liked books to the point where it was like the talk of the family. Like, if Katie's not reading a book, then what is she even doing? And so with that came my love of writing. I was writing poetry in like junior high and high school. Professionally, I joined the SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, in 2012 with my first picture book about a boy who likes to fart, seriously. And um, it just kind of went from there. I started going to conferences, volunteering, and just really working hard at my craft. So that's kind of the journey. And then 10 years later, I finally got one of the many manuscripts that I've written picked up. So
Yeah, and that's a huge achievement because that process to one, find an agent, and then once you get the agent, then you have to pitch to the publishers, and that to get your book picked up is a huge accomplishment. So, yay.
thank you. It was extremely hard. I wanted to, I'm not a quitter. I'm so sorry. My eyes like tripping. I'm not a quitter. But there was plenty of times during the querying process that I just was like, this is not for me. It's just mentally draining. It's mentally crippling sometimes with the amount of rejection that comes
Oh,
into publishing,
yes.
which I don't know if people really realize that going in. But my agent was actually in my critique group, and I knew her for years before she became an agent. And the minute she became an agent, she was like, I'm not trying to be funny, but I really want to represent your work. So I was like, oh. So she only picked up my picture books, and then there was another agent, Tina, at the Purcell agency, who represented my other work. But then everything kind of just went to Bonnie, who's my current agent, just to make it easier. So she sold Every Other Christmas as her first project being sold. So it's like literally the gatekeeping was the only thing standing in the way of editors seeing my work. Um, and so as soon as she signed me, she queried Every Other Christmas, or submitted, is what they call it, once you have an agent. And it was her first sell. So
It's incredible. And you touched on something really big is the amount of rejection that you see. And as an author and someone who I'm sure you pour your heart, I mean, your book is so full of soul and passion. And I'm sure that if you see one of those rejections, you go, oh,
right.
and it's like, well, that's my baby, like how can you not like it? And there's so much of that people don't really talk about because I've had some of that and I went, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like just that moment where you're like, well, how can they not like it? You know?
Yeah, it's not even ego for a lot of people, and it can be for some. It's literally your heart that you
Yeah.
put in a book. And so it's just like, how can you not see the importance? But being on the other side of things, now that I have a small press, I understand, like, I can't publish everything. And I do need to, it does need to resonate with me, So, there is the bias that comes in, like, what are your lived experiences and what's going to resonate with you, and that is an issue in publishing. But there's also just like, we're all different in how we see things.
Yeah.
um, plays a part in a subjective industry such as publishing.
How amazing is that you now have your own small press? I mean, that's huge. That's such a big deal.
Thank you. It was my desire to give some more opportunities, that caused me to start Phoenix Media and Books. I really want to partner with people, and preferably debuts, because it's such a minefield that you have to navigate. And I'm a helper by nature, but I would love to help people get to the point where they have viable careers in this industry. So
It's amazing. Well,
thank
let's jump into your beautiful book, Every Other Christmas. Thank you for sending this and the cute little bookmark that came with it. The
oh,
the note. I mean, it's so beautiful.
thank
How
you.
what helped you well, what inspired this book, first of all? Because um so many children today are going to different houses every other Christmas. It's very standard. I personally know many people who are going, through a divorce right now, and explaining these things to their kids is very challenging. So what inspired this book?
Well, I have divorced, I'm divorced from my children's father after a very long marriage. And one of the things that really was hard for me as a mom was just, not having that core unit, right? Especially for our holidays. So the year I wrote this, 2017, I'll never forget, it was my Christmas with the kids. And I was like just over the moon. I'm an ENFP. I don't know if that means anything to people, but I am completely like jazz hands whenever I'm excited about something. And so I went all out for Christmas. I had all these gifts and I was wrapping everything. And I wound up on Christmas Eve, I got really sick
Oh.
and I went to the emergency room and they admitted me. I was admitted to the hospital Christmas Eve. And I was just like distraught, like, are you kidding me? This is my Christmas with my kids. I was just crying and I'm like, just can't believe this. So the kids wound up actually coming to the hospital on Christmas and seeing me, and they were so excited just to see me. Like they didn't care where we were. They were actually loud and we got in trouble, but that's another story. Um, and it hit me like the where and the how and the why doesn't even really matter. It's just the time and all these special times that you have with your family, no matter the day. Um, that's the most important part. And so that's what gave me the idea for every other Christmas, is to show the greatness of a hard situation, right? Like this is not easy, but it's not the worst thing that can happen. And so that's what really gave me an idea. And then when they left, I started writing the book in the hospital.
Oh, isn't it funny how inspiration can come from really challenging situations? And you're like, light
Uh,
bulb.
yeah, it's and like even this year, my youngest son, he's not going to get here until the 26th, so we're not going to do the celebration or Christmas celebration until he's here.
Yeah.
So this is the way it's the way we roll, and family is a big deal to us and a lot of people. And I wanted to show like this is okay. This is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And you have one of the families that you feature is Colombian, and
Yes.
you have this wonderful glossary of foods that are traditionally cooked in the back, which I thought was really neat. I mean, you have the well, tamales and buñuelos and all these
Yeah.
really, really
Arroz con
cool dishes.
pollo, arepas. Oh my goodness. So when I wrote this book, I was actually living with a Colombian. And so I was really close to the culture. I'd been there and um, there I wanted to showcase their culture as well, not necessarily because of that relationship, but because of the relationship I had with so many of the people from the country. They're so warm and inviting. And I find that in the media, Colombia does not get the representation it deserves, Um, of course, this was written before Encanto came out. So I was really excited when that movie was made because I'm like, yes, like let's show some communities, in positive lights. Yes, they have a history, but so does the United States and pretty much every other country. So it was twofold for me to be able to positively show how warm and inviting and wonderful the people of Colombia are, and to also positively show a child from two different cultural backgrounds being embraced and loved by both, because that's another, I know it sounds like super messagey, right? But it's just real life. And this is something
Yeah.
that I've seen a lot of people struggle with which side of my family do I connect with? Well, what about both?
Right.
Let's just do that. So
And your illustrator, I just wanted, so when you said Encanto, this page right here, I went, wow. Like it's the illustrations in this story are so beautiful.
yeah.
Did you have a say in the artwork for it?
Yes. Oh, so here's the thing that I loved about Sky Pony Press. I had always heard that when you get picked up by a publisher, they choose the illustrator. You don't get a say in how your book looks, and that's been a fear of mine. Um, but they asked me immediately, did I have someone in mind? So Samantha Winkler was someone that I knew from my writing group, and she lived in Belleville when we met, or we met in Belleville, which is where our critique groups were. But she had moved to California. But she was the one who, Sky Pony went ahead and chose. I'm sorry, I'm losing my words. She's the one who Sky Pony chose to do the illustrations, and she did work closely with me. So the people in the book are fashioned on the African American side after members of my family.
Oh,
So I am going to show pictures on my social media of the people who are in the book. She took pictures that I gave her from Colombia. She took pictures of things in my mom's house, like the nutcrackers everywhere. My mother has nutcrackers everywhere from a Christmas gift that I gave her. And she was like,
oh,
I love this. And then she went nuts and bought a bunch of them. So those are very special touches. The Colombia scenes. I sent her pictures from Sand Hill
oh.
in Colombia where I went. And they do have like fireworks, and a lot of the times all of these images are definitely a collaborative effort on my part, and she took that and made it her own. Like I didn't tell her what to do. I just showed her, hey, these are some things for inspiration. Even some of the ornaments on the tree, like these are things that my kids made over the years that my mom kept. And so
Oh.
she was extremely caring about how she incorporated those things. But the illustrations were all her idea. She just took what I gave her, and she did a beautiful, amazing job. So
Yes. Well, and you talk about the feeling that you get just looking at the two different Christmas trees in the book, and you do such a great job describing each one. And you go, oh, like you talk about the little glass and crystals all over the Colombian family's tree. And it just, she did such a good job, and you did such a good job describing and
thank
setting
you.
the scene. Yeah.
I find Colombia to be bright and airy, and I was amazed at how the elements are like part of your home. There's open ceilings and things like that, and it was just awe-inspiring to me. And I was like, how can I describe this? you know so it's different, right? It's a
Yeah.
different way of living, but it's just still beautiful. And so I wanted to showcase that this child is enjoying both of these environments, both of these families, both like all of it as an integral part of both. So
Yeah. And I like that you described the food at each house too, because I'm like, oh, I want to enjoy that food. Oh, that sounds good.
food is like a big deal for
Yeah.
everybody's celebration that I know.
Yeah.
And one of the things in our family we laugh about is like how much food, like, we are not traditional as African Americans. We eat everything at holidays. Like Thanksgiving is not just turkey here. It's turkey and ribs and fried chicken and like who's bringing a ham? I'm gonna bring some catfish. Like it's just like we just do the most. Like we call it the most. We do the most, and so it's literally hilarious. Um, but as for the Colombian side, I definitely took some of my favorite foods, um, and incorporated how they prepare and how they do things. Well, from the family that I knew, so
Yeah.
it was exciting. And their food does play, as I say in the book, a flavor song in my mouth. Like
Yes.
it's
Oh,
delicious.
you just have a wonderful way with words. You can really tell the poetic background too.
Oh yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I love poetry and music, which is poetry. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then I saw that you have another book coming out 2023,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Um, The Magic Box is a book that I wrote a long time ago. It's an adventure, imaginative adventure story, about a child who thinks his paper box is magic, and he goes on all these adventures. And it just came from like children who, you buy all these things for it, and all they want to do is play with the box, right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually working on that and another project. I hope that I can get them both out in 2023. We'll see. But the Magic Box is being illustrated by my daughter. So I'm super excited. But she's newer. So I'm like, I may have to push it to 2024. But I'm like, this is a project that is dear to my heart because I get to work with my daughter on it.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah. And then there's another book that I've got working on called Katie Can't Draw. So it's a comedy about a little girl who loves to draw but she can't, and that's me. Like I love art, but I'm the worst. Like I cannot draw
Same,
at
same.
all.
You hear all these people who are like, I'm an author illustrator, and it's like, I've tried that and it is horrendous. And I'm like,
It's
well, that's
bad.
not my thing.
But you know what? I am gonna do some of the illustrations because Katie can't draw, so it's gonna be a thing, and we'll see how that turns out. But
That's so
I give
good.
everyone permission to laugh at what's gonna come from that. So
That's amazing. It's such a good way to showcase that too.
yeah, yeah. But there will be nice illustrations, and it'll be a joint effort for sure.
Very
So,
cool. Well, when those come out, we'd love to have you back on and have those, featured and talk about those too, because they sound incredible.
okay, I would love to do that. Thank you.
Well, Katie, I have really enjoyed speaking with you today. I will post a link to your website where people can look at your this book and then keep in the know for your future books that come out. So thank you so much for being here today. And I always ask everyone who comes on the show, what words of wisdom do you have for future generations?
Love yourself. That's the biggest thing. I think the biggest problems that we have is that we don't accept and love who we actually are. We want to conform and be like other people. Love yourself. Love the skin you're in. Love the eyes you have. Love your hair. Love your body. Love your life, and make it the best that you can make it. Do the things that you do that resonate in your heart, and that's how you leave the biggest mark, not only on others, but for yourself. So that's what I have for you because it took me a very long time to learn that. And now that I've embraced who I am in every way, my life is just it's not that much different, but it's so much better. So
Yeah. I every time I ask this question to people, I feel like the words of wisdom are just so powerful. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll apply that, and it's for adults too, not just the little
yeah,
ones. Yeah, for adults too, because a lot of us are still trying to learn that.
exactly. We all have a place and we all contribute something. And so I don't think any one contribution is less than the other. And I think we learned that with COVID. All of a sudden, a lot of the jobs and the people that so many people may not have looked up to, they were essential. And you realize that we all play this role in this coming together and connecting together, and you have to respect that. You have to respect the person that picks up your trash just as much as the person who holds your hand in a hospital. You need to respect that because without each other, what do we have? And that's the community and the love. And so love who you are, love where you're at, and love your potential, but love where you are right now. And, you know, I think that if we did more of that, it would resonate and it would spread, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes. Wonderful wisdom. And I'm so happy that I got to meet you. And thank you so much for sharing your book. I could see this being in so many places, and it's just a wonderful piece of work. So thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.